unleash our inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us for another hour of exciting and invigorating conversation. And I cannot wait for you to meet our special guest today to the table. As we get started, let's take a moment and think about why we are a Goldilocks community and why we talk about unleashing our inner Goldilocks. To me, Goldilocks is that young child, that young girl in each of us, or young boy in each of us, who knew at a young age that we can convince the adults around us and motivate them to do things that we want done with all the joy and exuberance. Somewhere along the way, we have forgotten that as an art form, and we have gravitated towards wanting what we want when we want without thinking about what it means to somebody else and why somebody should engage with us. So as we talk from the frame of reference of unleashing our inner Goldilocks, we start talking about how do we recapture that power of influence, and how do we harness that power of influence to drive our purpose and create prosperity for us and those around us, so that as we take the shared journey, everybody wins. It's about an abundance mindset and the ability to understand that prosperity comes when we work together. Research shows that we can each influence only 3 levels from where we are. Only 3 levels. So if I come at an issue from where I sit, where it only makes sense to me and the way it matters to me, I'm not going to be able to influence many people. What if that position is on the extreme right end? I can only influence 3 levels towards the center. If my position, on the other hand, is at the extreme left end, I still can only influence 3 levels towards the center. But if I took perspective of how what matters to me impacts other people, and I come from that place of perspective to find the centeredness, all of a sudden I can influence everybody in that place of centeredness, as well as 3 levels to my right, 3 levels to my left. All of a sudden I have magnified my 3 degrees of influence to 7 degrees of influence by sheer willingness to be centered and take perspective. Why is this important? My ability to succeed is directly correlated to my ability to influence others. Think about your purpose. Even your purpose sits in the centeredness of what you love, what you're great at, and what the world needs. If you're not in the center of all 3, it's not sustainable. If you love what you do and you're great at what you do, but the world doesn't need it, it's not going to drive your economic engine. You're really not going to be able to thrive and build a successful life around it. If you're great at it and the world needs it, but you don't love it, the world is going to see that your heart is not in it, and somebody who cares about it more is going to thrive more than you do. So the very essence of honing into your purpose requires you to be centered, and the ability to take your purpose and thrive in the world then requires you to translate that centeredness into actual action. As we go into today's conversation, I want you to take 3 ennobling ideas into our conversation. You always hear me refer to the ennobling ideas, and if you need more insight into it, I highly recommend you go and get my book, Ennobled for Success, and you will find chock full of information there to help navigate life and drive your success. The 3 we want to focus today on, first one is cultivate relationships wisely and intentionally. What we cultivate ultimately sustains us. What we seek is seeking us. What we cultivate is sustaining us. How are we mindfully, intentionally then cultivating relationships? Not based on who I can use, based on what is going to help me thrive, and who can I help thrive, and what is going to help me get to that centeredness And who is my team of shared prosperity so that we can take this journey together and help each other remain centered? That is the key. The second ennobling idea we want to take into the conversation is the importance of building relationships that inspire you. Relationships are not always meant forever. Some are seasonal, some we have to move on from because it no longer inspires us and it no longer helps us move forward. Some relationships hold us back. Always remember to surround yourself with what inspires you, because what inspires you is going to motivate you. Those who inspire you are going to help you move forward, and they're going to push you to be better. They're truly going to help you see more in you than you can see on your own. And the third ennobling idea I want us to take into the conversation is build ennobling relationships that matter, that is truly meaningful, and then aim with purpose while you follow through with kindness and grace. Kindness and grace are two human skills that no university can teach you and no credentialing can give you. It's something you have to find inside of yourself, the same way you find your purpose. And when you can show up in your humanity and you can aim your purpose to follow through with action, where everything is guided by your kindness and it's completely wrapped in your grace, that is what's going to help you build those lasting relationships, ennobling relationships, and build a community that truly matters in every sense of the word, not just financially, but in a mindfulness way, in a sustainability way, in a human relationship way, in a truly empowering and ennobling kind of way. To have this conversation with me of how your leadership community can help you build connections is a very special guest, Linda Fisk. Linda, welcome to the episode.
Oh my gosh, Cass, it's such a pleasure and such an honor to be here with you today. Thank you so much. I'm such a big fan of this show and the incredible wisdom and inspiration that you provide all your listeners every single week. So thank you.
My real honor. Thank you so much, Linda. And let me tell you a little bit about Linda, because this is only a little bit. Think of it as the tip of the iceberg. Linda Fisk is a multi-award winning leader, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and university professor, dedicated to amplifying and extending the success of other high-caliber business leaders. She is the founder and CEO of Leadership Global, a community of unstoppable women enhancing their leadership blueprint and embracing their power to be the best version of themselves in work and in life. In Leadership Global, Linda supports and guides ambitious, creative women to move in the direction of their purpose, their mission, and their dreams with powerful connections, critical support, practical tools, and valuable resources to show up, speak up, and step up in their careers and personal life. And most of all, you'll be excited to hear that she is a co-author of our upcoming book, Ennobling Business for Success: Inspire, Ignite, and Influence. And you are going to love the amount of wisdom contained in this book. And I highly recommend you taking the time to read her chapter as well. Linda, I am so excited that you are going to be spending the hour talking to us. And I would like to get started on what brought you to a point of starting Leadership Global, and what made you realize that this is going to be something the community needs and it's a way to help women thrive.
You know, thank you, Cass, for that amazing introduction and for opening up the conversation with a question, why? You know, early in my career, I began to realize that high-performing executives tend to value the perspectives of other leaders, as well as the wisdom that comes from practical experience that is learned by others in very similar circumstances. We learn by those that we're inspired by. But most leaders don't have a safe environment where they can share their concerns, where they can be really vulnerable, where they can be incredibly transparent. C-suite executives especially often feel that any public show of vulnerability or even uncertainty can actually introduce risk of losing the confidence or maybe the respect of their board of directors, their employees, their customers. So being in a community of other leaders that give you that safe space, that safe haven to be transparent, to be vulnerable, to be honest about where you're struggling, what your challenges are, what you want to learn, where you want to grow, how you want to advance your success, allows for a multiplier effect to happen. Because what I've seen occur over and over and over again is when leaders are drawn together because of shared values, shared purpose, shared mission and vision, and they support one another along that journey, there is this transformative multiplier effect that happens that creates the kind of impact that no one leader could create on their own. So being in a community of other leaders allows you to have an outlet to continuously learn, to improve in a confidential setting, to get exposure to new ways of approaching problems or issues, new ways of leveraging opportunities. And importantly, this kind of safe and supportive environment allows any leader to not only develop friendships and networks, but to develop the kind of answers and opportunities and areas of advancement and problem solving and being able to overcome obstacles and setbacks and challenges and even failures that can enrich your professional and your personal life.
Beautifully said. And one of the things I have noticed in my 30+ year executive career is men, because they have had generations of experience in doing this, they have mastered the art of how to do this. And men in the professional world come from a place of abundance because there is no quota. Every job is theirs. And only when they don't have anybody to fill it with a man, the women are given opportunities. That's the traditional way. Whereas women are entering this space based on there's one or two or three spots for women, right? And so the history of women doesn't come with that abundance. It doesn't come with that ancestral memory of truly knowing how to support. And where there is scarcity, there is conflict. And research shows that anytime there is intrasexual competition, there are challenges for thriving. So how have you taken that reality, right? It's just historic reality that we don't control, but we're trying to overcome. How do you take that and build a community of women where they can transcend, borrowing a page here from Karen, they can transcend the lived experience and build a new one? And then overlaying what Lewis talks last time about truly collaborative relationships, because only when we can transcend and collaborate can we truly build that community.
Oh, you said that so beautifully, Cass. Thank you so much. So two things I think about is that importantly, choosing a leadership community that supports your unique purpose. I think that is critical. Not all communities are going to attract the same kind of like-minded leader. So choosing a community that supports your unique purpose, your mission, your vision, can not only improve the growth and profitability of the organization that you represent, because you benefit from the hard-won lessons and the experiences of other leaders, but it can also enrich your perspective. It gives you a broader viewpoint to lean on. It opens up other ways of approaching an issue or problem. Members get access to best practices on key issues. They can receive honest advice and feedback from others that have no conflict of interest. This is unbiased, objective advice. And they can collaborate with other leaders to work on the business rather than just in the business. And I think that all of those things are so incredibly important in terms of choosing the kind of network that you want to be involved with. You want to be involved with a network that allows you to accelerate your definition of success, whatever that looks like. And then the other note that I would make regarding the difference between networking among men and networking among women, there's one truth that's universal. And I think that it was initially coined by Zig Ziglar, who said, you can get everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. So in my mind, this whole idea of joining a leadership community, creating your own power tribe, really affords you the chance to give back to others. So it's not, as you said earlier, just about what you can receive and how you can accelerate your success, but it's also based on how you can help support the goals, the ambitions, the objectives of other people. Because true success isn't based on whether or not you're winning or losing within a particular moment, but success is about consistently doing the work that ignites your soul. And so it's about surrounding yourself with people who are going to cheer you on, who are going to lift you up, who are going to connect you to the resources and the tools and the connections that you need to accelerate your definition of success. Now, the one thing that I would note, though, is that we know from recent research from Northwestern University that what matters to men is very different from what matters to women. For men who are exceptionally successful, who have learned, as you said, how to network extraordinarily well, they tend to be a part of many, many diverse networks because it's by touching base with an incredibly wide array of thought leaders and influencers and innovators and pioneers and trailblazers that they are able to quickly advance their success. But for women, what really matters is having a very close, intimate circle of women that you can trust and that you can confide in, and that you know your vulnerability, your transparency will be safeguarded. These are relationships that you're able to cultivate and nurture that will lift you up, that will absolutely have your back, that will sing your praises even behind closed doors. This close inner circle of women are people that you develop both personal and professional relationships with that are for you and with you and fighting alongside you during the battles in your personal or professional journey. And these deep, rich, abiding relationships are really what separates the needs for women in a networking group versus those of men. Men don't need to go generally as deep as women do, and the kind of sharing and the kind of authentic, genuine, transparent kind of revelation that men do.
Interesting. I've read the Northwestern research too, since we're all in the same town here. And yes, men are wired differently, and masculinity functions in a leadership space very different from femininity, right? So as you're building this group of women leaders, how are you then creating an environment for trust to be brought in? Because it has to be built piece by piece, right? Because culturally, not all cultures come into it saying, I'm going to give you a goodwill capital of trust and let's see if you keep it. That would be mostly the Eastern tradition, right? Western tradition is wanting to see if you can earn my trust. So in a Western culture, predominantly Western culture of wanting to earn that trust and building this group of women, and women needing to have that space to be vulnerable and have others hold space, how do you, as the leader of the group, create that? Because I think that's where the magic happens, and I'm sure the audience want to know, how do you do it?
Oh, that's so kind of you, Cass. Well, I know that women in executive leadership often face cultural and political hurdles that men typically don't. So they not only benefit from that inner circle of close female contacts that can share really private, confidential information, but generally they face a greater challenge in networking to kind of find those professional opportunities, those career advancements, and they, more than men, need to maintain both wide networks and informative inner circles. But within that inner circle, as you said, there needs to be a foundation of trust. And the very first thing that we do in Leadership Global is we have a code of conduct. And before we allow someone to be active in the community, they read through that code of conduct and they sign it. And what that does is it creates an understanding, a level set about the kind of conduct that we really celebrate and that we encourage, and those things that are out of bounds. And so the main tenet of our code of conduct that really is I think the foundation of the culture that we've created is respect. We, in our code of conduct, number one, ask every single member to abide by one very simple rule, to understand that all women, no matter what their background, their race, their religion, their creed, their socioeconomic condition, no matter where they come from, what religion they follow, what belief system they're a part of, no matter what their background is, all women are deserving of respect, and they're deserving of being honored, being recognized, being listened to. And we expect all women in Leadership Global to abide by this idea that all women are valuable. All women are due a level of respect and a level of understanding. And second, that all conversations within Leadership Global are to be treated as private and confidential. So once we have created that sort of tenet that all women are deserving of respect and all conversations are personal and confidential, the good news is that that sets the foundation of expectation that we are to treat each other with the utmost respect, and we're to treat all conversations as confidential and private. And that creates that foundation of trust. And then, of course, we ensure that women have opportunities to really deeply get to know each other in a very purposeful and intentional manner, through small groups like our leadership boards, through trust forums, through our accelerator webinar series. But these are opportunities where women have an opportunity to not only widen their network, but also create that informative inner circle of women around them that are always going to lift them up and cheer them on.
That's very good to hear. I'm happy to hear that. And as you continue to build this, how about sharing one or two success stories to actually give a face and a context to our listeners so that they can truly relate to it? Because so far we've been talking conceptually. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to do one or two storytelling.
Oh, I love that. So, we have had the good fortune of seeing strategic alliances formed, partnerships created, joint ventures have been initiated. We've seen women come together and build entirely new businesses. We've seen them come together in partnership and build new divisions of their business. We've seen revenue escalate, businesses double and triple in size, and those things are not unusual, because that is the power of community. That is the power of women coming together to understand that multiplier effect, the kind of transformation that can happen when like-minded leaders join forces and really create enormous impact in the world. But at the same time, I would say there are a couple outstanding stories that I think are just really remarkable. We had one member who lived in, still does, lives in Kenya, Africa. And her purpose, her real mission and vision in the world was to spearhead a nonprofit dedicated to young girls who were being sold into marriage quite young. So think of ages 12, 13, 14. And in some areas of Africa, that's still quite common, and I'm sure all over the world, it's still quite common for very young girls to be sold into a marital relationship by the families that have those young girls. And I have spotlighted many of those stories in my most recent TEDx talk and a lot of my recent articles and platforms that I'm given the honor to be a part of. This member had a heart to somehow disrupt that what we would consider in Western society that really unfortunate practice of selling young girls into marriage much earlier than they're able to make an informed decision around that. So she began a campaign within Leadership Global to raise money to support this mission. And inside 1 year, we raised more than $5 million to really be able to move this journey forward for this woman who really had a heart to enact this change within Africa. We also built her entire board of advisors with other extraordinary leaders within Leadership Global who raised their hand and said, that is something I would love to commit my time and resources to in support of this initiative. So we built the board of advisors. We literally built most of the fundraising associated with this. And through the generosity of the members of Leadership Global, we were able to fully fund that nonprofit in a matter of a year, which was remarkable, I feel. I also have seen businesses double and triple in size. We had 2 members that decided to partner. They were both in advertising and marketing, and they both had very successful firms. Both made well over $10 million in revenue a year, but they felt like they had hit this plateau of revenue where they weren't able to quite break through to the next level. And so I introduced them, they met each other, and they both were in marketing and advertising, but slightly different areas of that industry. One was very focused on social media. One was very focused on branding and positioning. And they both sort of dabbled in digital marketing, that type of thing. Well, by combining their resources, they were able to now offer clients branding and positioning, and then making sure that that branding and positioning was followed through in all digital media and digital marketing initiatives, as well as all social media initiatives. So they were able to take that branding pillar and ensure that it was well communicated and represented in all the different touch points that a client may want to initiate, everything from social media to website, digital media, event marketing, anything digital. And inside 1 year, they not only broke through that $10 million mark individually, but they were able to actually bill in excess of $100 million after they joined forces, because it opened up entirely new areas of development for them. They were able to create new revenue streams. They were able to create new commitments and promises on behalf of this combined resource. And so it opened up so many more doors for both of them. And it was absolutely spectacular to see.
Those are 2 amazing stories. And thank you so much for sharing, because our audience truly want to have those lived experiences as a way of communication to truly understand and relate to their own life. So appreciate that very much. Before we open this up to our live audience conversation, if you were to give everybody 3 pieces of advice or 3 tips, what are the 3 things everybody can do to find and be a part of their own leadership community?
Oh, what a great question, Cass. Thank you so much. If I could go back and also say that although I focused on financial reward for the 2 members that I highlighted, I would also note that it's not just about personal it's not just about professional advancement and breaking through any kind of revenue barrier. There are a lot of personal breakthroughs as well. We had one member who joined an accelerator webinar and was so moved by the teaching and training and coaching of the speaker, reached out to the speaker afterwards, became a client of this particular coach, and literally wrote me a 3-page thank you note about how her life had been transformed by the coach that she then hired from our accelerator webinars. We had an accelerator webinar. We featured this phenomenally impactful coach and consultant. Again, our member was in the audience, listened to this remarkably transformative talk, and then signed on with the coach and said, my life has been completely transformed from this one relationship. So sometimes it is just one relationship. It's just one relationship that makes all the difference, that can create transformation entirely. So I do want to just note there are personal breakthroughs that happen as well as professional. But if you feel like that kind of community is a place where you could thrive, then my recommendations, my advice would be committed to improvement. Those who believe that they hold a CEO title or a C-suite title, and so that's the end of their learning journey, they don't have to learn anything else, well, then probably a leadership community is not for you. Those who believe that because you've hit a certain title or you've hit a certain revenue level, you don't have to learn anything else, that's probably not a great place for you to be. On the other hand, those leaders who value continuous learning, who believe that every CEO must invest in their ongoing professional development, they can make excellent members of any kind of leadership organization. Second, I would say, be willing to make a time commitment. Consistent participation is such an important ingredient in bonding leaders. It takes time. That's how you build trust. That is what's required to discuss key issues. So you have to put in the time to bond with your peers, to build that level of trust that allow you to be really transparent, very vulnerable with some of those influencers and some of those inspirational leaders that you've surrounded yourself with. Now, listen, all C-suite executives are busy. We all know that. And as a member of a leadership community in any group, you have to view participation as a priority if you expect to get out of the community what you put into it. So you have to be dedicated to build those relationships. And that means consistent participation. And last, I would say, be self-aware. In addition to improved organizational performance, those members of leadership organizations that aim to increase their own levels of satisfaction and performance in their work, as well as the people they serve, their employees, their clients, their consultants, their customers, their investors, those are the very best leaders because they are self-aware to recognize where they need to improve and what they need to do to increase their engagement, their sense of excitement about the work they're doing. But they also are self-aware enough to know where they need to grow and what they need to do to ensure that they're building incredibly powerful and productive relationships with the people that they serve.
Excellent tips. I love the 3 tips. I know folks can take it and apply it. And as you're giving me the 3 tips, my mind was going back to Warren Buffett and Bill Gates meeting every month. And mind you, you're going to laugh. They take McDonald's coupons. They have breakfast with McDonald's coupons. They're both frugal, right? And they talk business. They mentor each other. They coach each other. Warren Buffett was the mentor for Bill Gates. So they continue to do this. And reverse mentoring is what we expect these days. Just because somebody got there first, somebody was generationally ahead, doesn't mean they don't have anything to learn from the person coming from behind, right? So to me, they are the emblem of what it's supposed to be. Intergenerational cross-mentoring and collaboration and ongoing commitment. And frugality helps. McDonald's coupons help, right? And continue to have that discipline. We always laugh working inside Berkshire Hathaway that this is what goes on, but it's fun. And it's very down to earth. If they can do it, we can all do it.
And Cass, I will say that also shows that they both have a sense of humility. And some of the most impactful, inspirational leaders that I have ever met have a deep, ingrained sense of humility. And so if you demonstrate a willingness to share your personal triumphs and, importantly, your failures, that creates a sense of connection with the people that you're serving and also demonstrates a sense of humility that I think is so important as a leader. Hard-won experiences, both good and bad, is what provides the depth and meaning for leaders of substance.
Absolutely. And with that, we are going to open it up for conversation with our live audience. Go ahead, Lois, I can see you have a question already.
it's an observation, and look for your feedback on it, Linda, because I think I loved what you were saying about trust and being open, humble, and where do you begin in helping people discover that within themselves? Because as I work with people today, especially on the internet, you see one group of people, especially, that is very, they got the answers. They don't want to work at it. They want to have this great laptop life. So, I run the opposite direction as soon as I hear those words, because I know that means I do the work. They have the fun, right? So how do you build that in when that thought process is really quite pervasive, and there's an entitlement to it, and there's something wrong with you if you expect it differently?
Yeah, that's so insightful, Lois. Thank you so much. I'm not sure I have the full answer here, and I'd love to hear from Karen, because she's incredibly insightful when it comes to these kinds of things. But for me, I find that if I can model the behavior, then that gives other people permission to be vulnerable and transparent. So if I'm the first one to raise my hand and say, wow, I really goofed, or wow, I feel really stuck, or wow, I really don't know which way to move forward. The good news is that gives other people permission to follow in my stead. So I think as a leader, you need to be an example through your behavior as well as your words. So if your words follow your deeds and your deeds represent your words, and there's alignment in those things, I think that leads itself to a level of credibility that can be trusted. And then I also think that literally just reiterating over and over again, this is a safe haven. This is a place where you are safe. This is a place where you can be transparent. You can be vulnerable. To me, I think that gives the reassurance that women have permission to talk about what's really happening. And Karen leads a roundtable for Leadership Global, where there's regularly tears and there's regularly, real emotion by some really extraordinary leaders that you wouldn't expect that from, but they feel safe. They feel like, oh, finally, I have a place where I can be as transparent as I'm really feeling. And again, I think that sets up the environment that it's okay and you are safe here. And as the saying goes, it's okay to not be okay right now. And you have a lot of people around you who are going to surround you and lift you up and care for you and listen to you and validate you. And to me, that's the kind of culture that we were trying to create in leadership. And thanks to women like Karen, I think we're getting there. I think we are creating that kind of safe haven. Again, thanks to women who step up in leadership, who have that kind of compassion. But Lois, again, you know so much more about this than I do. I'm sure my response probably sounds a bit naive, but you and Karen, I would bow to you and say, please teach me. So Karen, what do you think?
Well, I certainly agree with you that I have found with the women that I've met in Leadership Global that people are willing to be vulnerable to an extraordinary degree. It's really honestly been one of the things that's most surprising to me, because, in coming from a corporate world where so often we're expected to be perfect all the time, right? And if we show any vulnerability, it's considered a weakness. It's been really actually very touching to me how vulnerable people have been. And you're right. I mean, in the Enlightened Leadership Roundtable that I facilitate, we have had tears, and we've had people, and including men, I will add, that have popped in on it, share some of their experiences with incredible vulnerability and incredible openness, and talk about things from their past that, are very raw. And so I think we can create that container for people.
I love that. And the good news is Karen, as an incredibly talented, intuitive, insightful coach, can help them, right? So afterwards, they can reach out to Karen and say, I really need support and help. And you were so brilliant during that roundtable. Can we work together? Can we talk about how we can connect and work at a different level? And I love that. I love raising up women like Karen who are compassionate and talented and skilled to connect with other members, to offer them the kind of support that they deserve, to offer them the kind of insight that they deserve. So for me, it's a win-win-win-win-win myself. But Lois, what do you think? How do you deal with that wonderful situation that you just brought up? Wonderful in terms of thought-provoking, wonderfully thought-provoking situation you just brought up.
It's interesting because I'm finding that men, as much as women right now, are hungry to share and to connect. I think the gift of COVID is sort of a hunger that was created for connectedness. And what we women give them is the permission, because we tend to be more emotional, we tend to be more feeling, more intuitive. Don't take this wrongly, but there's a part of us that has that maternal, nurturing part of us that men relate to. And so we do become safe places for them. And I think as I look at what's going on in the corporation, if we can get women who are really strong, have their feet grounded in feeling comfortable with this, we have an incredible opportunity to change our work environment with men, because they'll have permission to be who they maybe really wanted to be, but didn't dare.
I absolutely love where you took this, Lois. And thank you for that brilliant question, and love the insights, Linda and Karen, you shared. And as you're talking, Lois, my mind went to my time as a very young female CFO for one of the Aon companies. And when 9/11 happened, I was the CFO for a division, and we had our East Coast operation in Twin Tower 2, and we had our entire data backup in Twin Tower 1. And the building we sat in as our international corporate headquarters in Chicago was a building identical to the Twin Tower, and it was the first tower off the coast of Lake Michigan. And we had a runway right across the street, and the mayor brought his bulldozer and stripped that runway because there was no way for us to shut it down unless the runway was just smashed. Okay. And going through that experience, one of the things we realized is there were only 3 of us in the organization who could cope with that situation. All 3 of us had been raised in war zones.
Interesting.
The male executives didn't have the psychological stamina to deal with people are calling from the rubble, telling where to send the first responders. All the planes went down were our clients, and the only other broker was Marsh, and they were in the other tower. So the 2 providers of service internationally both went down.
Wow.
And it was a crisis. And it was not the normal American experience. And older Irish men over 55 did not have a tool to deal with it. And the ones who were able to deal with it and receive their emotional stress and hold space for them and keep the business going, these were all women from war-torn areas who had come to America to make a life.
Wow.
And the people supporting us during this crisis were cleaning ladies who only spoke Spanish and Polish. And they made sure that we were fed and the office was taken care of and everything was protected. And the men got to see the strength of women, and we didn't even need to have a language holding us together, because women inherently have that strength. Don't touch my babies and don't touch my home, and I'm going to come with you with the vengeance, right? That mama bear mentality, that protectiveness, and that preservation instincts, right? And I saw it firsthand come to life. And that's what I hear you talking about, Lois. And yes, men don't have that safe place to go. And if a man goes and talks to a male coach, they're going to be called all kinds of names, right? We know that. So what I find is men have no place to turn. And if we are strong enough to not hold their behavior against them, but hold space for them, I think we have the opportunity to flip the script. I've had so many older men reach out to me, and they have not only cried, but said, you know what, we live in the same community and I've never even bothered to say hello to you. I'm a white privileged male. I thought this would never happen to me. And here you are, a young immigrant woman. You are investing time in me when I never even bothered to say hello to you. But the key for that transcendence is truly showing up who we are supposed to be and not how we feel we were treated. And to me, that is the key.
Another thing that I would note there is, Leadership Global entered into a partnership with another executive community called C-Suite Network, and that's comprised of both men and women. And the good news is that men feel very comfortable coming to Leadership Global events. And I've received so many sweet, very, very heartfelt notes from those men saying, thank you for giving us a safe place to be too. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of some of these conversations as well. Thank you for inviting and embracing us while we've been there. And, of course, they are more than welcome to join any of our learning events and that type of thing. And I will tell you that, we've had a lot of men sort of raise their hand and say, is it okay if I'm here? And the answer is absolutely. We are not exclusionary, but we are uniquely focused on the advancement, the acceleration of women. But men are warmly invited to anything that serves them, that's not member only, that's not private, anything that's public, they are welcome to. And through C-Suite Network, which is our sister organization, comprised of both men and women, we've seen men come out in droves for many of the events that we've had.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you know what's
Wonderful.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say really quickly, back to what Lois was saying about men needing the support space, and what you said too is, my old boss called me the other day, and he had listened to an interview that I had done on the radio with Rebecca Goiter Hall, and he said, you talked about working with women, but men need it too, and you would be so good working with men, and I don't know why you don't work with men too. But I had that kind of relationship with him where we did talk and create a safe space, and it was just really interesting to me that he really reached out and said, men need this too.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to build on the question Dr. Lewis asked, because there is something there. The younger generation, the younger millennials and Gen Zs, they are growing up in an environment where they don't want to own homes. They don't even want to own their clothes. They rent the runway. Okay. The young ladies and men who work for me, they rent the runways. They don't own clothes.
Yes, they do.
They rent, right? And they don't want relationships because they don't want anything long-term. And they have this fear of missing out, FOMO, right? So in that culture, and the conversation among themselves is, oh, Sari didn't have an answer, so I guess we can't do this. So they're so used to going to a device for answers, but the device doesn't tell you how to execute it. And they've grown up in a culture where they have answers, but life is not based on answers. Life is based on choices and the resulting consequences of those choices with the entire human society surrounding it, right? It's not just them. So given that reality, and they're not yet in leadership positions, how do we tap into them? And how do we bring them in? Because to me, that is the challenge of our generation, because before we die, they are going to be in charge of everything in our lives, right? From government to healthcare to everything they are going to run. How do we truly give them the tools, or how do we work with them to bridge that enormous gaping divide?
Shall I go first?
Yes, please do.
So I think they're challenged in some ways in that what we've experienced is some hardship. We've experienced some things that didn't go right. And what that does is it teaches you how to work around, how to shift, how to become resilient. And I think we have done so much to protect the younger generation. We want their world perfect. And in that drive that we have, we think that that's good parenting. We've kept kids from really getting that skill. I think also they have a hunger. You know, if you watch what they do with TikTok, for example, they're in and out of that. They're, you know, it's this constant racing back and forth and putting up pictures. It's short snippets, but they're looking for a connection. They don't know how. And so I think it's really going to be a lot of our reaching out and helping them see the value of it. And they've seen a lot of relationships go amok and they don't want it. They're scared of it. And so we need to share with them relationships that work and how being vulnerable can work. Yes, it can be hurtful too. How do you protect yourself while being transparent? There's a lot of lessons we need to teach, and our universities aren't teaching it right now. So great opportunity, I think.
Absolutely. And
That's just the start.
parents actually call work to tell them you're stressing out my kid, right? So we're dealing with it in the classroom, in universities, we're dealing with it in the workplace. Helicopter parenting completely run amok, and it's our generation that has raised them.
And it's all over the world. My Japanese friends say the same thing. You know, their parents are taking them at university, and it's that sense of letting them grow up and be free.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done that anymore.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with what you said, Lois, about trying even now after the fact, after they're out of our homes and after they're out of school, you know, teaching them how to have healthy relationships, teaching them some of those skills. You know, I know we're dealing with that with my stepsons, you know, and it's because of the environment they grew up in. It's really a relearning at a very kind of odd time of their lives to be relearning those things, but it's so important to reach out and make those connections. And that's, you know, to me, the most important thing is really to have good relationships with them and model it through having open and honest conversations with them and be vulnerable yourself. I mean, really, to me, one of the things that I have found most useful is to be vulnerable myself and share things that I'm unhappy about or scared about or uncomfortable with or struggle with, so that they know that, you know, we don't have perfect lives either.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amy, I just want to note that thank you I know you've been with us the whole time, but thank you for being on video. It's awesome to see you. And I'd love to hear what you think as well. Oh, I'm sorry. You're on mute, I believe, my friend.
Nandini, go ahead. We can't hear you. So while we wait for her to speak up, Linda, why don't you take a moment and tell us how folks can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So I am, quite unfortunately, very easy to find. I am on all the social media platforms, although I'd rather not be. I am on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. And we have a website, Leadership Global. You're always welcome to reach out to me on the website, or you're welcome to reach out to me via email. I will say I'm pretty responsive, fairly responsive on email and LinkedIn. The others may take me a little while to respond, but I am really open to speaking to anyone who's looking for guidance, feedback. If you need access to resources or tools or funding or connections or relationships, if you need any kind of support to lift you into that next level of success, I would love to have a conversation about how we can be of service.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Linda. Looks like Nandini is having some microphone challenges, so I am going to wrap this up and bring this to a close. But thank you so very much
Thank you.
for the time, the opportunity to have a conversation. And our live audience, thank you so much for bringing your insights into the conversation to make this twice as invigorating. And I cannot emphasize enough for our audience to mark your calendar for the 5th of October and be there and be on the ready to get the extremely coveted promotional offer on the 5th of October that you can get from any of our websites, and cannot wait for you to read our book, to take that knowledge and insights and truly build an ennobled world and organization that befits you. Thank you so much, everybody. And remember, as we've been talking today, every human interaction is our opportunity for transformation. So go out there, get to know people, build firm, insightful, and intentional relationships. And through that process, transform the world around you. And don't forget to take a moment to transform yourself.